Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to let people file in for just another minute, and then we'll kick it off. All right, Ayanna, what do you say? Should we get started?
Let's get started.
Awesome. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for PowerFlex's webinar today, Empowering Communities, the Future of Solar Energy. I'm Annie Gala, Head of Marketing Communications at PowerFlex, and your host for today. I'm joined by our speaker, Ayanna Dunmore. As PowerFlex's Policy and Market Strategy Associate, Ayanna plays a pivotal role in advancing clean energy initiatives that drive PowerFlex's business in solar energy storage and EV charging. Ayanna conducts policy analysis and advocacy, and then translates regulatory and legislative changes into actionable plans for PowerFlex customers to navigate the evolving industry landscape. Previously, Ayanna worked at PowerFlex as a business development analyst and associate, where she supported PowerFlex's origination efforts by analyzing the technical and financial feasibility of solar and storage projects, including microgrids for PowerFlex customers. Ayanna has been with PowerFlex since 2019 after graduating with a BA in environmental science and public policy from Harvard College. Just as a heads up, this webinar is going to be recorded for PowerFlex's proprietary use. And of course, we're going to make it available to participants afterwards. The presentation is planning to last about 30 minutes, leaving about 15 minutes at the end for questions. We have made the question functionality available for all participants. So submit your questions throughout the presentation, and we'll address all of them at the end. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Ayanna.
Thanks, Annie, and thanks everyone for joining. Today, I'm going to be talking with you all about community solar. So I'm going to start off giving an overview of what community solar is and its various benefits. We'll then dive into how you can purchase or finance community solar. And then I'll start really into the meat of the public policy aspect of this, where I'll go over federal incentives for the community solar, as well as state incentives and recent updates in the policy landscape. And finally, I'll close off with PowerFlex's experience and how we can help you navigate this industry and navigate community solar. So without further ado, what is community solar? So community solar refers to any system that allows multiple subscribers to engage with the system and be allocated portions of the energy or portions of bill credits. So what this looks like is community solar bringing benefits to residents who otherwise wouldn't be able to install solar on their property. So instead, solar is installed on a host site. That host site sends all the energy straight into the grid. Individuals, businesses, schools, tenants, residents, you name it, anybody can then subscribe to receive a portion of this energy, and they will be compensated for that portion of the energy on their utility bill through what are called bill credits. So subscribers will receive utility bill savings, and the system host will receive project revenues or annual site lease revenue. And community solar has a plethora of environmental, social, economic benefits. The primary benefit is accessibility. As I mentioned, this is a key way for people who would not otherwise have had access to solar or been able to install solar on their own property to still receive some of the benefits that solar can provide. A key aspect I want to call out about this is the equity aspect of accessibility. So as you'll see throughout the rest of my presentation, a key focus of community solar is to provide benefits to low-income residents and disadvantaged communities. These residents spend a disproportionate amount of their income on utility bills. So being able to subscribe to these systems and receive savings on them helps these residents a lot. As well as when you site community solar in a disadvantaged community, these communities have often been overburdened with heavy polluting industries, landfills, former coal plants, stuff like that. So when you site community solar, they also receive the sustainability benefits and local public health benefits as it reduces greenhouse emissions, so air quality improves. There's also a lot of local economic development with community solar. So installing the system can create jobs. It provides opportunities for local contractors. It supports local businesses, both those who can own the community solar or invest in the community solar or just subscribe to it as well. And all of this investment job creation also generates tax revenue for communities. And of course, it provides clean energy. It's reducing greenhouse emissions. It's providing a vital ally in our fight against climate change, and it can really be used to promote a sustainable energy future for the grid and support climate goals. So that's a look at the benefits overall. It also provides benefits to companies in particular. So yes, you can receive financial returns with community solar, and they can be really lucrative. Community solar is what's known as a front of the meter installation. So you don't have to worry about any on-site load. Instead, the energy generated by the system is sent straight to the grid. So what this means is that if you have a facility that has, say, a large rooftop or a large amount of land, but you don't have much load, or you're a landlord of a facility, this is a great option for you because it allows you to still install that system and not worry about being limited at all in the system size. So community solar really allows us to install larger systems than we normally would be able to, which makes them more cost effective and maximizes economics for the system owner. And it also serves the community. I think a key thing for businesses to keep in mind is this community engagement can also have really positive benefits for your company. It improves your brand awareness and popularity by showing that you are caring about your community, you're providing savings to your community. It's also great to show that you are achieving your sustainability and ESG goals. And as I'll go over, there's a lot of tax benefits and other sorts of incentives that you can take advantage. So community solar has a lot of benefits that can be taken advantage of. And I think a great example of a company that did understand the benefits and really utilize them is Medline Industries. So this is the project we worked on with Medline. It's located in Montgomery, New York. It is currently the largest rooftop solar system in the state of New York at 7.2 megawatts DC. And this was installed at a distribution center at Medline. They employ 700 people there, and they distribute products and services to healthcare providers. And what's really great about this system is not only is it decreasing carbon emissions by 6,000 metric tons annually, but it also reduced the energy costs for not just Medline, but also 600 residents in the area. And I actually had the great honor and opportunity to attend the ribbon cutting of this system, where I really got to get a firsthand account of all the benefits this system is providing, not just Medline, but the surrounding community. So at this ribbon cutting, and again, another great example of media coverage for the company. You know, we had a press release from the governor acknowledging that this was the largest rooftop system in New York. We had assembly members attend, members of NYSERDA, key officials at Medline. Our CEO, Raphael, attended as well. And while I was at the event, I was hearing so many great things about Medline and how they help the community. People are mentioning to me, you know, this community already, a lot of people at this community already worked at Medline, or they knew somebody who worked at Medline. So they had a really great perception of the company, but now with this community solar, they're even more popular. One of the people who was in charge of helping manage Medline subscriptions was telling me, you know, it was really easy to find subscribers for this project because Everyone trusts Medline. It's a brand that they know is doing the right thing. And as soon as they came to them and said, hey, do you want to save bill savings for installing community solar nearby, there is an oversounding enthusiasm in the community. So this is just a really great case study of how community solar can help everybody, the community, the business, everyone involved can really benefit from this. So now that you know the benefits, let's talk about, if you're a business and you want to purchase or finance this, how can you take advantage of that? So there's several different ways. You can, of course, purchase a system outright. You just put up an upfront capital purchase. I should mention that the owner and the host of the system can also subscribe to the system, so you can also receive utility bill savings as well. And what this is called is an anchor tenant. And what that means is that there's a large subscriber, usually a business, that receives up to 40% of the system's production and receives bill credits directly on their bill. So if you purchase this, you will receive any source of revenue from the system. So any shared savings of bill credits, any applicable state incentives or RECs. For landlords, you can also offer a PPA to your tenants so that they can also share in these savings. You can receive all the revenue of the system, and in exchange, you can offer a slightly lower PPA than what those tenants would normally be paying for their utility savings if you would like. And if you don't want to put up any upfront capital, that's okay. There's also a site lease option in which a third-party owner will own the system. They will pay you to lease your facility, your land, your rooftop, parking lot. Wherever the solar system will be installed, you'll receive an annual site lease payment. And you could also be an anchor tenant and still receive utility bill savings as well. And then the third-party owner will receive all of the project revenue. And I should mention that there are a lot of incentives that can help make this process be more affordable and more cost-effective for businesses. So first and foremost, there's currently a lot of federal benefits. So under the Biden administration, with the Inflation Reduction Act, billions of dollars have been made available to support the development of community solar. This is primarily through programs known as the Low Income Communities Bonus Credit and the Solar for All program. And a key measure of these programs is that they are focused on increasing community solar access to low and middle income residents and disadvantaged communities. Again, we want to make sure that community solar is an equitable way to increase solar and provides benefits to everybody, especially those in disadvantaged communities. So what this looks like is for the Low Income Communities Bonus Credit Program, this is a 20% adder to your ITC. So it could boost your the investment tax credit to up to 50% per se. And what this is it's known as Category 4 of the program. It's dedicated to community solar projects that allocate 50% of their total capacity to low-income subscribers and guarantee that each of those subscribers receive a 20% bill discount. So they receive 20% of the bill credits or of the possible savings. In addition, this incentive also makes sure that there's 50% of the capacity going to owners that meet certain ownership criteria. So this is targeting smaller businesses, or geographic selection criteria. This is targeting areas in persistent poverty areas or environmental justice communities. So this program is really trying to make sure that benefits are really going to low income communities, small businesses, or tribal lands. And what happened is in 2023 was when this program first opened, and there was a significant demand for it. It was heavily oversubscribed. There were over 3.5 gigawatts of applications for only 700 megawatts of capacity. So there is a lot of demand out there for community solar. And so in response, the IRS recently released their revenue procedure for this year. We're not sure when the program is going to reopen this year, but we do know that when it does, they've moved 100 megawatts from Category 1, which was focused on behind-the-meter solutions, to Category 4. So they acknowledge that there's a lot of demand for community solar, and they're trying to allocate more capacity for it. In addition, we also have the Solar for All program. This is not a program that is aimed at businesses per se, but rather aimed at states, territories, tribal governments trying to create the development of community solar programs. So this is part of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and under it, the EPA released $7 billion for a Solar for All funding opportunity. And this was released as a competition where they would award up to 60 grants to organizations or states that would enable low-income and disadvantaged households to access the benefits of solar. And so what this could look like is that some of the states who have been awarded this money can then use the funding to expand or develop new community solar programs. And so these awards were actually announced on Monday. So we're going to have more details about who received the funding and how this funding is going to be used in the next couple of weeks and months. But very exciting time because, as you'll see here on the next slide, even though these federal benefits are great and they're really helpful, the primary driver of the availability of community solar in an area is state incentives and state policies. So here, as you can see, states with existing state incentives are highlighted in the dark blue and orange, and experts believe that those markets alone could generate 14 gigawatts of community solar in the next 4 years. But this number could increase as more states develop community solar legislation. And here you can see the states in the light blue all have developing regulation or legislation on the table for community solar programs. So community solar is increasing. It has a lot of interest and support of the federal government, and more states are trying to take advantage of it, encourage it, and it's just going to continue growing in the future, as we hope. And as you can see here, I've highlighted 3 states. There's also Washington, D.C. in there, but it's kind of hard to show on the map, in orange, and noted that they're the best for on-site C&I customers. And why we do know that is all of these markets are good community solar markets, but those 4 in the orange actually have some key crucial factors that we look for in ways that can really help businesses pursue community solar. So a great community solar market for commercial customers is one where there is a high bill credit. Often you'll see that the bill credit will be tied to retail energy rates. And so if states have really high energy rates per se, those bill credits are going to be really high as well. And it's going to create a lot of savings for subscribers, but also a lot of revenue back to the site owner. In addition to bill credits, we also like to see states that also offer additional incentives. This can make the systems more cost effective. And together with the bill credits, we see that states that have this type of model provide enough revenue for businesses to get back the return on their investment. We also like to look for markets that have limited interconnection backlogs. I will say the greatest challenge to community solar right now is interconnection. Currently, especially since these systems can be larger than regular behind the meter systems, they can take a longer time to go through the interconnection process. And that can really slow down projects and can sometimes threaten if they are actually pursued. So we try to look for markets where there's a limited interconnection backlog or interconnection is not as delayed as other markets. We also prefer programs that are designed very simply and transparently. It makes it easier to explain to customers, easier to get buy-in from the community. If the more simple and transparent a program can be, is better, honestly. And also we look for we prefer programs that offer ongoing capacity. So you can apply anytime, whenever the project is ready. There are, as I'll mention, some states that have first come, first serve capacity, and this can just sometimes be a little difficult because it can be rather competitive, and you sometimes have to wait only once a year to be able to apply into the program. So that can also prove some challenges to some projects. But the four markets I'm going to highlight next meet all or most of those categories that I just highlighted. So the first is Washington, D.C. This is a really great community solar market. They have fairly high energy rates, so the bill credits are really high. They have the highest SRECs in the country. They're about $300 per megawatt hour. But the problem with DC is there's very limited land and rooftop space available. So it's just really hard to find an available space to locate a project. But if you do, it provides really great returns. And since they must be physically located in DC and all the subscribers must be in DC, it's guaranteed to ensure local benefits to the surrounding area. The next day I want to go over is New York. And so they do things a little bit differently, where in New York, there's what's known as the New York Sun Incentive. This is an upfront incentive provided by NYSERDA. And you can receive a base incentive for a variety of projects. The base incentives differ based on where the system is located and how large it is. But community solar gives you adders. So you get a baseline adder just for having community solar. There's also what's known as the inclusive community solar adder. So this is for any community solar projects that provide 40% of their project capacity to eligible subscribers, and 50% of that capacity is residential subscribers. And the eligible subscribers, there's a lot of low income restrictions there. So it's a program trying to promote low income adoption of community solar, and that will provide you an additional adder. And there's also the community benefits project, where it has even more stringent requirements for small businesses, low income, really trying to make sure that this is going to disadvantaged communities, and that has another adder. So in total, you can receive, if you have a community benefits project, you can receive 3 different adders on top of the base incentive you would have already been receiving from New York Sun. So it can be really, really valuable. And the bill credits in New York are not directly tied to the energy rate. It's based on what New York calls the value of distributed energy resources, or VDER. And VDER is how New York compensates any energy production from distributed resources. And it is made up of 5 components that look at all the different ways that community solar can help the grid and can help local communities. And those 5 categories all generate into $1 per kilowatt hour rate that you receive for 25 years. So this rate is what the bill credit is based off of. And again, it's going to vary from project to project. VDER rates are higher the more downstate or closer to New York City that you go. With Con Ed territory, the utility that covers New York City having the highest rates. This is to incentivize projects to be located where the greatest demand in New York State is located. Just want to call out that New York also has a prevailing wage requirement. So all projects greater than 1 megawatt AC must be installed with prevailing wage. Although New York does provide an adder for this prevailing wage to help try to offset those increased costs. The next state is New Jersey, New York's friendly neighbor. So they have bill credits based on retail energy rates, and they have some of the highest energy rates in the country. So these can be really high bill credits. They also provide a fixed $90 per megawatt hour SREC for projects. And New Jersey has really strict low income requirements and community engagement requirements. So all community solar projects in New Jersey must allocate 51% of their capacity to low income subscribers and provide a minimum of 15% of the bill credit discount to those subscribers. But I should mention that through the design of their program, they actually encourage developers to offer more than 15% of savings to subscribers. They released their program at first come, first serve, but it's a one-time when the capacity opens. And this year they have 225 megawatts of total capacity in the program, but we know that there's a lot more demand for that in New Jersey. So what they've done is, if demand surpasses that capacity within the first 10 days, they will hold what's called as the lottery process, where they will rank all the projects they receive in order of the bill credit discount they're offering, and they will award projects to those that offer the highest bill credit discount. So what that means is developers are encouraged to offer the most savings as possible to residents. So although there's a minimum of 15%, we're seeing projects really be approved that have 30% savings to low income subscribers. So really trying to make sure that their program targets and helps low income subscribers and subscribers in disadvantaged communities. There are also a community engagement aspect of the application, where you must show that you are engaging with the community and you have community buy-in. That's pretty unique to New Jersey. And their program is only for projects that are located on rooftops or carports. So they are not allowing ground mounts unless it is on contaminated sites. And that's because they really want to preserve their land. New Jersey's is the garden state. They want to keep their green space and their farmland. And I should have mentioned at the beginning, there are several different ways that community solar can take form. There's large scale ground mounts known as greenfield development, or it can be located on site, on rooftops, carports, ground mounts that are on a host actual property. And as you can tell, New Jersey focused on the later. PowerFlex is also focused on the later, but there are programs that also offer green scale development per se. And New Jersey also has a prevailing wage requirement. And if you can't tell, New Jersey also does things a little differently, where a lot of the system size requirements you'll see here are in kilowatt AC. Everything in New Jersey is in kilowatt DC. So their prevailing wage requirement is anything over 1 megawatt DC must use prevailing wage. And here I have Maryland. We're staying with the Mid-Atlantic states. They had a pilot program for community solar for a couple of years, and then is ending this year, but they're releasing an even better permanent program. So they saw the success of community solar in their state, and they decided they wanted to make sure community solar was here to stay. And so there's going to be a new permanent program starting next year. And it is going to have a low income requirement of 40% of project capacity to low income subscribers, with each of them receiving at least 10% bill credit discount. In Maryland, you receive the bill credits based on energy rates, and you also receive SRECs. And a key thing to note here is that Maryland has a bill called SB 783. It has passed both chambers and it's awaiting governor's signature. The governor is expected to sign any day now, and that will actually provide an opportunity to increase SREC rates by 1.5 times. So this is a really key development. It's going to make solar development in Maryland that much more lucrative and that much more generate that much better returns for businesses. A key thing to note here, one challenge in Maryland is around interconnection. Specifically, you must be approved by the Public Utilities Commission before you can even apply for interconnection. And sometimes this process can just get a little delayed and take longer than you expect. But at PowerFlex, we currently have fair amount of projects in Maryland under development. So we're learning about this process really well and can help manage expectations along the timeline for it. In the interest of time, I'm going to go through the next 4 markets pretty quickly. These are really great community solar markets. They have a little bit more challenges than the 4 I just previously mentioned. But again, still great markets. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to go through them a little quickly. Maine has some of the highest energy rates in the entire country, so their bill credits are really lucrative, and you can also receive RECs from Massachusetts. However, they have really significant interconnection backlogs and delays right now in the state. So it's taking a long time to get projects through. Illinois has what's known as the adjustable block program. So this provides RECs varied by utility and size. It also offers a smart inverter rebate and even a rebate to add storage onto a project. Prevailing wage is required for all projects with the adjustable block program. And the adjustable block program opens once a year with a limited amount of capacity. And the greatest challenge for community solar is the community solar capacity is much smaller than the current demand. So that capacity allocation goes very quickly. You need to be ready to apply as soon as the capacity opens, or you frankly don't receive any capacity that year. Colorado has a program through Excel Territory. They have 2 versions of it. One is income qualified, where 100% of the capacity must be for low income subscribers, and they must receive 30% bill credit discount. And the other is only 5% have to be low income subscribers. I will say for Colorado, their energy rates are a little bit lower than some of the other states I've highlighted. So their challenge there is they just offer slightly lower returns than some of these other states. And then Massachusetts overall has a more complex program. So again, thinking of those 4 pillars I was talking about, easy to understand. Massachusetts is a bit more complex and takes just a little bit more explaining. But instead of basing the the bill credits are the retail energy rate. It's based on what's called an alternative arm bill credit, which is based on the wholesale supply rates. And Massachusetts offers what's called the SMART incentive. It's kind of similar to VETR in New York, where you're receiving an incentive that encompasses 4 or 5 categories of all the benefits that solar or a distributed resource is providing. And community solar provides an adder to that value. The issue with Massachusetts right now is they have a really long interconnection queue. They also require storage for all projects greater than 500 kilowatt AC, which is most community solar projects. And the Department of Energy Resources has released a memo that they're seeing energy rates rising in Massachusetts, and based on that, how they calculate the SMART incentive, this actually lowers the value of SMART incentive and can drive it to 0, because the SMART incentive is supposed to cover the difference between the energy rates or the avoided costs you're going to receive and what you need to get a return on investment. So as energy rates rise, SMART incentive goes down, and we're seeing it currently at 0 in some cases. And now, so those were all existing incentives. I now want to talk about some new developments that have been happening in the policy landscape. So the next markets I'm going to be talking about, they might be developing a new community solar program, or they might be making changes to their community solar program. So a huge development that's been going on is in California. I'm sure many of you on the call have heard about this, but if you haven't, what happened was in 2022, a law was passed in California that directed their Public Utilities Commission to evaluate existing programs that they have, and if necessary, create a new community solar program by July of this year that met certain low-income criteria. So California has had technically community solar programs, but they have been designed in a way where it's administered by the utilities own the system, and the bill credits provided are through wholesale energy rates, so they're a lot lower than what you see in other states, and it just has not led to much generation of community solar, and certainly not as much as the state would like to see. So that is why they passed this bill, and it created a lot of anticipation for a really great community solar market in California. They're such a leader in other areas of renewable energy that everyone was geared that this could be a really huge market, great opportunity for community solar to really thrive. And the Coalition for Community Solar Access proposed a program that would be based on the net value billing tariff. And it was an incentive that could generate 8 gigawatts of community solar capacity in the next several years. But unfortunately, in March of this year, the Public Utilities Commission actually released their proposed decision, and it was nothing like anyone was expecting. Not only did they not propose a viable community solar market, they just offered to modify their existing programs in such minutiae way that it's not going to really improve them at all or generate the success that we would like to see in that state. But more concerning, they pushed back against that net value billing tariff that CCSA had proposed in such a way that they raised legal arguments against it that could jeopardize community solar across the country. They basically questioned the legality of community solar. So this was met with strong opposition from a coalition of supporters of the net value billing tariff. PowerFlex, we submitted comments opposing this decision. And I want to call out that even former FERC chairs, Norman Bay and Neil Chatterjee, also submitted letters or comments to the commission opposing this and saying that, you know, we don't think your legal arguments you're raising are valid because it actually violates 20 years of FERC precedent that has said, yes, community solar is legal. States are allowed to have community solar. So this created a really contentious atmosphere, is because the legal arguments they're raising were just so concerning and so threatening for the whole community solar market, especially California was to ultimately pass that decision. But on the brighter side, last week they were supposed to vote on it on April 18th, and the CPUC actually decided to hold from voting it, and they're going to not vote on the decision until May 9th at the very earliest. This may be drawn out and might take even longer to be voted on. So The legislation said we're supposed to have community solar program by July of this year, but I think now CPUC really needs to go back and try to create a new proposed decision that they can then vote on. So it's somewhat good news, and then it seems that at least they didn't vote this decision in right away. We're still going to have to, keep advocating for better options. And so my colleagues and I are going to, along with others, are going to keep pushing back against that proposed decision and keep advocating for a program that will really meet California's needs and make it a much better community solar market that it could be, because there's just so much potential in California. The next market I want to talk about is Minnesota. So they actually opened up a new community solar program in February of this year. And I have key features of the program listed here on the right. One thing I want to note is that the program began this year, but it's already having a pretty bumpy opening where you need an interconnection agreement to apply into it, but Excel Territory, the utility that you must be in to be eligible for this program, has kept the queue closed to new interconnection applications. So new projects have not been able to apply into it. And this is really key because Excel used to offer a solar rewards rec program for businesses, but that is now only eligible for income qualified customers, so nonprofits or multifamily unit buildings, and for-profit customers can no longer receive that incentive. So this community solar incentive is possibly the only incentive a business can take advantage of in Minnesota at the moment. But it's a little complex, as you can see from the key features. I want to call out that the bill credits can vary by subscribers, and the application occurs in monthly batches. So you're incentivized to apply earlier in the year rather than later of the year. It's just a little complex, and even more concerning is that it's having a rocky start with Excel with that interconnection application. But hopefully it smooths out and the program can really thrive. The next one I want to talk about is Pennsylvania. So they have had community solar legislation for a while, for several years now. And for the first time ever, a community solar bill has actually passed the House with bipartisan support on March 26th. So it's now heading to the Senate. It's awaiting passage in the Senate. But we're really all excited to hopefully see community solar begin in Pennsylvania. And the system that's proposed in the current bill is a really great program. It's very similar to the programs I've described earlier. Where you're going to have a 5 megawatt AC program, you're going to have to pay prevailing wage. Bill credits will be decided later by the Public Utilities Commission, so we will be very involved in that. And there will also be regulations for low-income subscribers. So encouraging news coming out of Pennsylvania. And the last market I want to cover today is Virginia. They had 2 bills passed in the beginning of April this year, expanding, one expanded Dominion Energy's existing community solar program. They called it Shared Solar Program. It increases their capacity by 150 megawatts. 75 megawatts of that must be for projects that don't have more than 51% low-income subscribers. And all RECs now with this program will be retained by the utility. It used to be system owners retains the RECs. And it's key to know that in Virginia, they operate a little bit differently. So in most states, subscribers will subtract the bill credits from their total bill, and then they just have to pay the net bill. In Virginia, they do that process, but there's still a minimum bill requirement that you must pay. And the issue with Virginia has been that the calculation for that minimum bill has been rather high, and it's actually been higher than the bill savings they were seeing with solar. So it almost negates any of the benefits that you would see of community solar subscription. But with this new legislation, this minimum bill calculation must now take into account the benefits of solar. So we're hoping that this minimum bill is going to come down, and it's going to just make it that much easier to take advantage of the community solar savings. And I should mention that in Dominion Energy, low-income subscribers do not have to pay this minimum bill, so they can take full advantage of their savings. The bill also created the opportunity for incentives to be created for projects on rooftops, brownfields, landfills, or dual-use agriculture, and those incentives will be developed by a working group at the Department of Energy at a later date. And the other legislation created almost the same program that we see in Dominion Energy for Appalachian Power, but they only have 50 megawatts of capacity, and there's no low-income subscriber requirements, and low-income subscribers are also not exempt from that minimum bill. So I flew through that a little fast, and I know that was a lot of information at once, and it's hard to keep track of, but just want to call out that here at PowerFlex, we can really help make this a lot more simple for you. I'm on the Public Policy and Government Affairs team. We are constantly monitoring new legislation, advocating for legislation. We have an incentives team that will track any changes in incentives, help you apply to the incentives, and we'll do a lot of research around this in-house and make sure that any changes are easy to understand and that you're keeping track of all the information. And we also have a lot of experience developing community solar at PowerFlex. We've installed over 45 megawatts, including the largest rooftop community solar system in the country. And as I mentioned, we also have the largest rooftop solar system in New York and the largest one in the Bronx. So we have a lot of experience, and especially building those larger rooftop systems. And we will handle all of your needs from the very beginning to the very end, from site validation all the way through asset management. And with community solar, we'll help you with the application and managing the subscribers. So really, you don't need to worry about anything at all. We'll help you through every step of the way. And lastly, just want to end with some really quick case studies of some cool projects we've built. So that largest rooftop system in the country, that's at Summit Ridge Energy in Hampstead, Maryland. It provides financial savings to over 1,300 residents in the area and small commercial customers. So really a system really helping out the community. The next one I want to talk about is Crasdale Foods. This is located in the Bronx, and it provides 300 Bronx families with savings on their electric bills. And it's a great example of how you can have community solar even in a really dense area like New York City, and still provide benefits to that surrounding area. The next one is one of our earlier ones, Continental Building Products. This was a 2.4 megawatt system. It was actually developed next to the now decommissioned Indian Point nuclear facility. Continental Building Products, as you can see, is a very industrial facility. And so, yes, this community solar can even be installed where you're producing gypsum drywall or other manufactured products. And the system also produces benefits for the nearby area, the bill credits. And last one is Fordham University. You know, we don't just work with businesses, we can also work for community solar, can also work for universities, municipalities, government agencies. Anyone can really install this on their property or subscribe to it and take advantage. So we installed the system at the Rose Hill parking garage of Fordham University. And it's really great because alumni, faculty, and students can now receive savings on their electric bills, which is really important. And so with that, I ran a little bit over time, but sorry, but thank you all so much for listening. And yeah, if there's any questions, I'll try to cover them in the next couple of minutes.
Awesome. Great job, Ayanna. Thanks so much. It was a lot of information, but it was a lot of good information. We did get just a handful of questions that I'm going to try and cover off on, including what are some of the common challenges faced by community solar initiatives, and how can they be overcome?
Yeah, so one common challenge we see a lot, especially with the development of new programs of community solar, is pushback from utilities. It's just the classic case of utilities don't want too much distributed resources or else they then lose revenue. And so the classic case we see with this is California, where that proposed decision that was offered was very much in favor of the utilities. It had a lot of the proposals that they had asked for, but in exchange, it doesn't really create all the benefits to businesses or local residents as it could. And so how we overcome that pushback is trying to work with legislators, work with utilities as well, and try to come to a happy middle. I think a great example of that is Virginia, where the solar industry and clean energy industry would like to see that minimum bill be erased, but the utility said, hey, we really need that to make sure that we're still covering all our costs. So they met in the happy minimum where it's like, okay, we'll keep the minimum bill, but let's try to reduce it because it's not taking into account all the benefits of solar. So there's a lot of different ways. And with our public policy and government affairs team, we're constantly working with so many different stakeholders to try to make sure that all of these programs thrive and benefit everyone as much as they can.
Good answer. What role do you see community solar playing in the overall transition to a sustainable energy future?
Oh, I see it playing a huge role. I think during my research, I came across this statistic. I think it said like, hold on, let me actually find it. But it was mentioning how states that have community solar legislation actually install so much more solar than states that don't. I think it was something like 6 gigawatts or something like that. And so I see this just being a huge increase in the transition to solar, the transition to renewable energy. I think community solar offers so many great benefits because it has that accessibility and equity element to it. A strong opposition to solar has been that the people who can afford it are rich and wealthy, and they're the only ones that are going to see those benefits. And I think community solar flies in the face of that, that says, no, you don't have to just be wealthy enough to install panels on your roof. You can also subscribe into a community solar system, and you're still going to see savings on your bill. So I really see this as a crucial element for us to achieve our climate goals. And I see it as a really important element as well to make sure that everyone can take advantage of solar, and it's not limited to just a few.
Great answer. I think we have time for just one more, and I think I know the answer to this. Does PowerFlex only work in the states that you've discussed?
No, so we work nationwide. I tried to call out states with existing community solar programs, or they're developing community solar programs, but even in the states that don't, please contact us if you're interested by the information you heard at all. Even if there's not a community solar market available now, we can still help track it for you, or we can also look into other solutions for you. So there could also be behind the meter solutions that might work for you, storage or EV charging. You name it, we can do it all. And yes, we do work everywhere in the country. So wherever you're interested in, let us know, and we will be glad to help you with that.
Absolutely. Well, I think that that's the right note to end on. Thank you again to everybody for participating. Thank you, Ayanna, for your expertise. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.